Man, just when you thought it was safe to come outside, Dan Patrick's now has came out and spoke about this Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James beef. What Dan Patrick said, he pretty much summed it all up. And he ate Stephen A. Smith up. But we'll unpack all that here next on the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Man, Stephen A. Smith keep catching these strays from all the media personnel, all his colleagues, and all his contemporaries. Now, Stephen A. Smith have been catching L's ever since the day LeBron James stepped to him courtside, and he's taking L's like Drake when Kendrick Lamar and him was going back and forth. Stephen A. Smith can't catch a break. And see, what has happened is with inside this feud between him and LeBron, Stephen A. Smith has been exposed. See, now Stephen A. Smith, a lot of video evidence is coming out of the things that Stephen A. Smith has said in the past, and he's like contradicting himself. And people are calling Stephen A. Smith out for the bullshit and the lies that he's been spewing across the media outlets, all because of the feud that he has with LeBron James. Now, guys, this one right here, this has a lot of layers to it. And Dan Patrick, on the Dan Patrick show, he absolutely eviscerated Stephen A. Smith. I mean, he broke it down from every clip to what Stephen A. Smith said on how he's been on these podcasts talking this talk. But Dan Patrick saw right through all the lies that Stephen A. Smith was saying. And shout out to Mitchell Williams, one of my subscribers, commented on a video I did about Stephen A. Smith and Molly Karam, telling me that I see what Dan Patrick said and I need to do a video on that because Dan Patrick summed it all up. So shout out to my subscriber, Mitchell Williams, for recommending me this. And this is why I'm bringing it to you guys. But this story has a lot of layers to it. Now, check this out. Dan Patrick has a podcast called The Dan Patrick Show, and he weighed in. But before we get off into that, right now, I'm at 15,350 subscribers. I'm on my way to 16,000. Now, if you're new to this platform and you're just now coming across any of my videos, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button. Turn your post notification on so you know every time Simply Ball Dropping drops another hot banger. And I appreciate all the love and support. Now, let's get off into what Dan Patrick said about Stephen A. Smith on how he just depict all the lies and all the things that Stephen A. Smith has said. Let's take a listen.
Smith, ESPN First Take host, has had a lot of things to say about LeBron James. And can we bring up, do you have the original? This is what Stephen A. said. Was this about a month ago, Marvin? What was it?
January 29th.
Okay, so January 29th, Stephen A. said this on his show on First Take.
I'm really, really trying to be as respectful as I possibly can be towards LeBron James. One of the top 2 or 3 players in the history of basketball, number 2 in my eyes. A treasure to the game of basketball that we should and will all miss when he is gone. I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. Stop this.
Okay, he's referring to Bronny being out on the floor against the 76ers, and Tyrese Maxey embarrassed him. Truly embarrassed him. I don't know why Stephen A. has to give us the resume of LeBron. I thought that was kind of blabbering. Just get to the point. You're bothered.
And let's stop it right there. Dan Patrick says something key. This is what Stephen A. Smith does all the time. He will build you up, and then he would try to break you down like a Black & Decker workbench. And I'm glad that Dan Patrick's pointed that out. So let's continue.
By LeBron that he put his son in this situation where he's getting embarrassed on TV. Yes, Paulie.
Yeah, and it feels like Stephen A., and he referenced it the other day when he recapped this. He was talking about the entire past year as well, the efforts to get Bronny James on the Lakers, etc.
That's BS.
All right. So Stephen A. was on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, Gil's Arena, and had this to say about a run-in with LeBron on the sidelines recently. And Stephen A. was asked about that.
I thought it was weak. I thought it was some bull.
Okay. First of all, it's not weak, because weak would have been tweeting something out. He confronted you. So that's not weak.
Now, you guys, you hear what Dan Patrick said. Stephen A. Smith went on Gil's Arena with his chest out saying it was weak. Dan Patrick said, no, it wasn't weak. It'd have been weak if he'd have tweeted something out, but he stepped to you like a man. So I'm glad Dan Patrick pointed that out. Let's continue.
He didn't push him or anything. There were words exchanged. And then Stephen A. had this to say about LeBron James.
You said my son. No, I wasn't. I was talking about you. I was talking about you. Wasn't about your son. I know he's number 55. I know he got work to do. Woo. I believe that he got potential. Yeah. I believe that he got the potential to go pro. I truly believe that. It's going to be tough, but I think he could pull it off. And by the way, I'm rooting for him. I ain't rooting against nobody, but I was talking about your ass. You did this. Mm-hmm. You the one that had us as reporters, as a league, as an NBA franchise. All of us got to sit back and be quiet and capitulate to your.
Okay. So Stephen A. he's all fired up. Talking about LeBron the father, and what he did to his son to get him on the Lakers. It's not like LeBron sent his son to Afghanistan. His son is on the Lakers, acting like he's the 55th player drafted. He's a bench player. He goes back and forth to the G League. And, oh, by the way, how many guys have been embarrassed by Tyrese Maxey in an NBA game?
Now, did you hear what Dan Patrick said? Because earlier he stated that, LeBron's son, Bronny, got cooked by Tyrese Maxey when they played Philly. Rightfully so. And that is absolutely correct. But I'm glad that he pointed out to let everybody know the guys that's been in the NBA who hasn't been cooked by Tyrese Maxey. We'll continue.
Quite a few.
Thank you.
It just felt... It felt like it was over and above what needed to be said.
Now you hear that? Over and above what needed to be said. That's when it crosses the line of starting to be personable. And that's what people are talking about. Stephen A. cannot keep it basketball. Personal jabs and personal shots. And I'm glad Dan Patrick pointed that out. We'll continue.
We all understand. Bronny's not going to be in the league when LeBron retires. He's just not good enough to play. He can be a G League guy. Should have stayed another year at USC, but his dad is probably saying, I don't know how much longer I'm going to play. I want to play with you. This has been his goal. He was able to pull strings, and he was able to make this happen. People had a problem with that. A son wanting to play with his father, I'm going to use, all my cachet, and he was able to do that. He wants to be around his son.
Yes.
By all accounts, his son was raised properly and seems like a really, really good kid. But when you start talking about somebody's parenting.
There you go.
Like, that's where it felt like it was.
Speak on it, Dan.
If I'm LeBron, that's a trigger point.
Now, you heard what Dan said, and this is what I've always been saying. That's why I didn't get in to doing shows about what Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James was going back and forth with. I did shows about all Stephen A. Smith's colleagues and contemporaries calling him out for the bullshit that he's saying in this LeBron James feud. And he's being exposed. And I've always said to people that was on the other side, I've always said the triggering point was when Stephen A. Smith questioned LeBron James as a father. And that's what got LeBron hot and to a point where he had to step to this man. Thank you, Dan Patrick, once again for pointing that out. We'll continue.
Where you're like, okay, now you're questioning me as a father. That would be the problem that I would have with this. And he's saying it in such a dramatic way. It'll fall off. I mean, come on. I mean, Bronny's doing okay. Going to get his ass kicked a little bit. So what?
Thank you.
Do I blame J.J. Redick for putting him out there? Do I say to LeBron, I don't want him out there on Tyrese Maxey?
Now, you heard what Dan Patrick said. And I'm glad Dan Patrick came out and said this on national television. See, this is the stuff that I've been trying to tell people about Stephen A. Smith for the longest. Jason Whitlock has been saying it for the longest, but we looked at Jason Whitlock as Jason Whitlock was just hating on another black man and trying to tear him down. But the proof is in the pudding and the facts are out there. I always tell people, men lie, women lie, facts don't. And what I'm saying is, I've been saying this all along, regardless of what side of the fence you're on. You could be on LeBron's side, you could be on Stephen A. Smith's side. But us, parents that have children, you protect your children at all costs. There's triggering points when you talk about fatherhood, on how you should be conducting fatherhood, how you should be raising your child, things that you should be doing with your child. And see what Stephen A. Smith said. Like I've said, when he used that word, I'm begging and pleading you as a father to stop this madness. You're taking a shot at my parenting skills. And that's the problem that LeBron had. And like Dan Patrick said, Stephen A., it wasn't a weak move. He stepped to you like a man. He addressed you face to face. You came on your show and on ESPN the next day, and you was humbled. Your tone in your voice was like, LeBron, the father, I understood where he was coming from. But then you go on Gil's Arena, like Bron said, going on a Taylor Swift tour, and you got your chest open and your chest out, and now you want to be boisterous. And see, everybody sees through you, Stephen A. Smith. You got to stop fooling yourself, because you're not fooling me. And you're not fooling your colleagues or your contemporaries, because everybody has called you out in this situation. So Stephen A. Smith, it's time to put it to bed. It's time to leave it alone, let it rest, and let's move on and get back to talking about basketball, because there's other storylines in the NBA that are captivating the audience, but you fail to talk about this on ESPN First Take. You are so focused on a number 55th pick in an NBA draft just because your hate that you have for LeBron James is undeniable. And there's video evidence out there on plenty of platforms on what you say about LeBron. At first you said you didn't have no problem with him, but when this feud started, you got up in your feelings and said, I don't like him, and I never did. That's because you're being exposed, and that's what you're supposed to say. So Stephen A. Smith, man, it's time to let it go, man. Get back to, doing your thing, critiquing players and talking basketball. Do the things that you're good at. Because when you get off in these feuds and these back and forths, all your contemporaries and colleagues, they exposing you. I don't think you can come back from this, Stephen A. You just got to keep the main thing, and just critique players and keep it moving, man. Keep the personal stuff out of it, and you'll be all right. I see everybody in the comment section. #salute. Oh, yeah. I must have forgotten. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. And we're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.